Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to make another quilt. I went to the quilting store. Yeah, probably don't need any more fabric, but I did. I went out and bought this lovely Moda jelly roll rug. I'm going to do a jelly roll quilt, and I'm also going to be putting Prairie Points in this quilt as well. I really don't like making any kind of quilting patterns. I will basically make my own quilt pattern up myself. So I'm going to be using this jelly roll pack. So as well as using the jelly roll pack, I'm also going to be using this pink fabric. I got 1.5 meters of this. This is the colour that I'm going to be using the Prairie Points for. This fabric here, the gingham pink, I am going to be using this to bind my quilt. And the yellow I am going to be using for the backing of my quilt. I also got this really cool yellow Rickrack for my quilt, and I'm going to see what this looks like later when we get it all together. So let's start sewing. Now with the jelly roll pack, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any darks, because sometimes there's like maybe blacks in there or like a really dark blue, but this pack was full of just really bright and cheerful colours, which I absolutely love. And this pack, if you want to know what it is called Moda Bungalow. So let's open this jelly roll up. I know you probably don't like opening them because they're so pretty, but I mean, we have to quilt something out of them. So I'm going to open this up. And I don't want to be too... I have the tendency of wanting to like look at all the patterns and stuff, and it slows you down. So basically I'm just going to open this up, and then it'll just fall out. And here we go. I think I'm just going to keep all the colours together like this. And I'm just going to sew them all the way across with these colours. I'm not going to try and put them into any sort of order. I'm just hoping that there isn't two that repeat, and I think they do. If I have two that repeat, I might just move them, but that's the only organising that I'm going to do. I'm going to keep it within these colours going down. And the great thing about choosing a jelly roll pack is it gives you the complete colour wave of this particular fabric collection. So this is every single fabric collection of this fabric, if that's right. And I'm going to have to move some of these as well, because these are the same as well. Let's get started. I'm just going to strip piece these together. Another thing I'm going to do as well is just cut this off. This is where it's been on the loom. You hear me talking about this all the time whenever I do any sort of quilting videos. I just cut these off because I don't want these little holes showing, or I forget about them and they end up being within the quilt. So before we get started, I've not been paid nor sponsored to create this video. So what you always have to do is put your fabrics right sides together whenever you are matching up the seams, like so, and then you are just going to sew all the way down. This quilt is going to come together so easily, and it's going to be so effective. You just have to wait and see what it looks like. This is a sewing machine that I use. It's the Baby Lock Soprano. It's an absolutely amazing quilting machine. I do my own free motion quilting on this, as well as the piecing. It's a fantastic machine to use. I have placed on my sewing machine my 1/4 inch sewing foot. I also have a 9014 Microtex needle, which I always use for quilting. And also I just put some regular polyester thread in for piecing, and also the same colour in the bobbin. I just have it set to a regular straight stitch. The great thing about this machine is that it tells you which foot to use. I obviously haven't got my J foot on. The J foot is just a regular utility foot that comes with the Soprano. I have my 1/4 inch foot with guide on, and we have stitch selection, so it tells you what stitch we're on, and we're on a straight stitch. And actually this is not manufacturer setting. When we see the grey boxes around here, that means that is the manufacturer setting. So this would be the regular setting for a straight stitch. And I always like to just stretch out my stitches here to a 3.0. I'm just going to get my two sections. They're right sides together, and I'm just going to start sewing them along. Now, also to point out with the jelly roll, they are the width of the fabric. So it's generally like 40 inches it's going to be. So I'm just going to sew it all together. So here we go. These are the two strips sewn together. I've pressed them so they are lying flat. Always press as you go. It's just an easy thing to do and it's just best practice. So I'm just going to continue sewing all these strips together. And towards the end, I'm probably going to going to do the last 4 like not attached, because I'm going to put the Prairie Points in, and because the Prairie Points are pink and the other side of this quilt is more like yellows and blues, it's going to be a really high contrast, which is going to be amazing. It's going to look absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so in my jelly roll pack I had both of these 2 colours together and both of these 2 colours together, and I separated them. So I alternated. I did this one and this one, this one and this one, as you can see. And also I think it's going to happen again throughout my pack, and it's going to be consistent as we start to sew it. Okay, so I've run out of bobbin now, and I'm looking very short on my white threads here also. So when I run out of bobbin thread, I will take a load of bobbins and just wind them all up again, and I'll put them back in here. So I have a few already pre-wound, and I always use this bobbin thread, and I have an Amazon store link in the description down below, and yes, I do get a small commission from that if you order anything from there. So this is on that, and anything that I use is generally on my Amazon store. Okay, so I sewed it all together, but I did not use all of my jelly roll strips. I used 24 of them, as you can see. And also another thing that I did was I attached this rickrack down, and I did it all the way down the seam, and I did it on the 1, 2, 3, 4, on the 5th one in. So this is right at the end, and I did it on the 5th one in. I did it all the way down to the bottom. And my design is changing as I make this video, and I have attached a strip of yellow that I was going to use for the backing, and this is 6 inches wide, and I did it to the width of the fabric, but I did actually have to attach a little piece extra on here. You will not see the seam once we do the free motion quilting, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to do 1 6-inch at the top and at the bottom. So next we're going to work on the Prairie Points, and I want the Prairie Points to be in a seam. So I think I'm going to cut about 2.5 inches off of this. I mean, you could have done it separate. I mean, it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to fold this quilt in half, and I'm going to cut 2.5 inches across, and I'm going to show you how to make Prairie Points. So from my pink yardage here, I am going to cut 5-inch squares, and I'll let you know how many squares this quilt is going to take, and I'll show you how to make Prairie Points in a quilt. Okay, we've got a 5-inch square. You can do it with any size. You don't want to do it too small because it's going to be finicky. You're just going to fold it over, and you're going to go to your eye and you're going to press this down, and then you're going to fold it over again, and you're creating a triangle. And this would be your raw edges, and all the other sections here are concealed, so you don't have any raw edges. And you're going to press that so it's perfectly flat, and I'm going to move on, and I'm going to create all the Prairie Points that I need, and I'm going to tell you guys how many you need. I now have 13 Prairie Points running all the way across here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a scant quarter, where it's not quite 1/4 of an inch. You do it a little bit more in on a quarter, and I'm doing that because I want to baste everybody into place, and I'm going to get my other strip that I cut, and I'm going to put it right sides together, and I'm going to sew my seam 1/4 of an inch. So first of all, I'm going to baste them. Okay, so that basted all of my Prairie Points into place on my quilt, and now I'm going to take that 2.5-inch strip that I cut off before, and I'm going to put it back on to the quilt. So I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to make sure that I do a 1/4 inch stitch. And now I want to make sure that I sew over that first basting line so you don't see it. So as you can see, I've now attached a top here, and along this seam, my mum's probably going to laugh now because she doesn't like the rickrack already going down here. But I'm going to put more rickrack on, Mum, and I think you're actually going to like this rickrack. Viewers, like, let me know, do you like the rickrack or do you not like the rickrack? Let me know. And I'll show you the quilt right at the very end. I actually think I think it looks very effective. So I'm going to run a load of rickrack going down this seam all the way across. And here we go, this is how we look so far. Now what I'm going to do down here, I think I am going to add like a bit of yellow just to wrap that whole border up. And I think I'm just going to do a 2-inch going down here, maybe even less. No, yeah, I'll do a 2-inch. I'm going to do a 2-inch on both sides. So stick around a little bit longer. I'm going to get this quilt basted and quilted, and you can see what the overall quilt actually looks like. It looks amazing. I think you're going to like it. This is what the finished quilt looks like. I haven't finished off the binding. I still have to do the hand binding yet. So that's why the clips are on the side. I think the Prairie Points look really cute, and I hope you give them a try. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. And thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.